Let's talk about the relationship between angles and shapes. If we have a triangle, for example, let's draw that like that. Say you have angle A, angle B, angle C. If you add those angles together, A plus B plus C, if it's a triangle, they're always going to add up to 180 degrees. It's pretty interesting, right? Interesting fact about triangles. So if you had a protractor and you measured each one of these angles, and you added them up, you'd get 180 degrees every time. All right, well, what about a rectangle, right? A rectangle looks something like this, right? Each angle in a rectangle, 90, 90, 90, 90. It should be clear that if you just add all those 90-degree angles together, that'll give you the total. So 4 times 90 is going to equal 360 degrees. So all the angles in a rectangle should add up to 360, and of course the same is true for a square, right? Now what's interesting about that is you could split up a rectangle in half like this and make it into 2 triangles, right? And because we said the angles in a triangle add up to 180, this plus this plus this would be 180, and this plus this plus this would be another 180, and of course 180 plus 180 is 360. So because we could fit 2 triangles in here, the degrees of all the angles added up is going to be double as well, which is kind of cool. The same can be said for a parallelogram, right? If I draw a parallelogram, looks something like this. That's not the best parallelogram, but these 2 lines should be parallel to each other. If you cut it in half, you get 2 triangles. Therefore, if you have, A, B, C, D, if you add up all those angles, you should also get, as an answer, 360 degrees, because we can fit 2 triangles in here. So you can use this rule where you try to fit triangles into a shape. So you can try to figure out what degree all those angles will add up to. So another example would be if you have a pentagon, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make them connect like that. So a 5-sided shape where you have angle A, angle B, angle C, angle D, angle E. What are these going to add up to? Well, how many triangles can I have, right? Like, what's the fewest amount of triangles that I can fit in here? Well, if I go like this, I have 1 triangle, and then I do another one like this. Now I have 3 triangles, right? So if 3 triangles fit in here, there's 3 triangles, so 3 times 180, that gives me 540 degrees. So therefore A plus B plus C plus D plus E should add up to 540 degrees. So again, see how many triangles can fit in there? However many that is, multiply it by 180 degrees. That gives you the total degrees that all the angles should add up to. We do another one. If you have a 6-sided shape, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretend that looks like a nice symmetrical hexagon. Okay, so how many triangles can I fit in here? Well, you could do a triangle like that. That's a triangle. You could go like this. That makes another triangle. You could go like this. That makes one here and one here. Looks like 4 triangles, right? So 4 triangles times 180 degrees, that's equal to 720 degrees. So in a hexagon, a 6-sided shape, all the angles together should add up to 720. If you measured each angle, this one, that one, that one, that one, and that one, you add them all up, you should get 270 degrees. So that's kind of cool, right? You can use that rule to find the angles of, any shape, no matter how many sides it has. Just try to see how many triangles you can fit in there, and that'll give you the answer. Now, let's talk about some other rules when it comes to angles, and I'll kind of give you a summary of all these rules. If you have a line like this and a line like this, if this here you determine to be angle A, let's say you measure it, you get a particular angle, then this angle across from it over here is also angle A. These 2 angles must be the same. Again, if you just have a straight line and a straight line, they cross, the angle here and the angle here will be exactly the same. What that means is that this angle over here, call that angle B, must be equal to this one over here, also angle B. So that's one thing that you can keep in mind. But there's some other rules as well. If I have a line going like that, and then another one going like this, and we'll say they're parallel. I'll draw those little arrows to show those lines are parallel. And then I have one line just coming through like that. Well, I have lots of angles here. right? For example, I have this angle, angle A. And what we just learned was that the angle across from that should also be angle A. Now, based on that information, we could figure out some other angles here. There's one thing called the Z pattern, which says if you have a Z shape like this, or a Z shape, a Z pattern or a Z pattern like that, see how that makes a Z? This looks like the letter Z. If you have that shape, then the angle inside up here is going to equal the angle inside here. So that means that this down here is also angle A. And if that's A, this is also A. Now, what about this angle up here? We can call this angle here angle B. And if that's B, of course, this is also B. And there's another rule. It's called the F pattern, where basically if you have a letter F like this, then the angle in here is going to be the same as the angle in here. Now that's not, you don't have to memorize all these different patterns like Z pattern, F pattern. There's another one actually called the C pattern. We'll get to that in a second. You don't have to memorize all those. There's easier ways to do this. Basically, if that's B, this is B. And if you have AA, and this is AA, then this here must also be B, and this here must also be B. And the reason those have to be B if those are A, well, we already knew that they were up here. This situation is the exact same as this situation, right? Because those two lines are parallel, and this line going through is coming through at the same angle for both, that means that those two situations are identical, so all the angles will be the same. This is the exact same image as this thing up here, as you can see. Now what's cool is that if you're looking at this whole angle here, from here to here, that's obviously 180 degrees, right? If you have a flat line, that's 180 degrees. If you go all the way around, it's 360, right? But just half of it is 180. And so, B plus A, right? Angle B plus angle A should equal 180 degrees. And that's true for this, right? You have B and A gets you to 180. It's also true here, because you have A and B. That makes a straight line, right? A flat line, that's 180. Same with this here. B and A makes 180, right? And so you can keep that in mind. And so that's where the C pattern comes from. The C pattern is that if you have a C shape like this, kind of looks like a C, except it's a little bit square, it means that these two angles on the inside of the C must add up to 180. And of course they do. A plus B is 180. We already said that, because it makes 180 with this one here. So really there's all these patterns, C, F, Z, but they're all kind of saying similar things, or they're saying things that we could figure out through other methods, right? So the more you work with angles, the more you're going to get used to seeing these ideas and concepts, and you'll just get familiar with, oh, if that's A, then this must be A, and this must be A. You start to get used to it, and you kind of see that the angles look like that, right? Like this is a big angle, it's angle B. This is a smaller angle, it's angle A. We'd call this obtuse because it's bigger than 90 degrees. This is acute because it's smaller than 90, right? So if you have an angle that is less than 90 degrees, that's what you would call an acute angle. If you have an obtuse angle, that's an angle that's bigger than 90 degrees, right? So keep that in mind as well. Let's just do a quick example, right? Show you what I'm talking about. Let's say you have a line like this and a line like this. They're both parallel. Let's say you have a line coming through like that. It doesn't cross, it just kind of stops like that. And you have this angle here is 30 degrees. Well, if that's 30, then this angle here has to be the remaining angle that adds up to 180, right? Like this angle plus this angle should be 180. So 180 minus 30 is 150, so this angle here must be 150 degrees, right? 150 plus 30 is 180. Because again, if you make an angle that just has a straight flat line, it's got to be 180. Now, if this is 30, according to the Z pattern, this here is also 30. And if that's 30, gotta add up to 180 here. This will also be 150. So you can kind of see what we're talking about, right? Like if that's 30, this is also 30. That kind of makes sense. You can see that. And then if that's 150, this also has to be 150, right? So the more of these questions you do, the more comfortable you'll get. There's not really much to it beyond what I just showed you, though.